This famous nude man had these hands because, as best as I can tell, he spent the last 5 years abusing this woman. She forcefully put me in the bed next to him in this cramped room. Brian Hickerson, who has dated Hayden on and off, has a history of arrests related to domestic violence. As a sudden jolt traveled down my spine, I sensed my skull colliding with the wall. Until the paramedics pronounced her dead, Brian remained emotionally detached. Just 2 days ago, on August 16th, renowned actress Hayden Panettiere passed away. Since then, police reports have been trickling out, and now people are getting the chills over her last words, which exposed the truth about her struggles as a former abused child star dealing with immense pressure from the industry. Because her mother, Leslie R. Vogel, was a former soap opera actor, Hayden began her cinematic career at the tender age of 11 months. She went on to star in a number of critically acclaimed films: Scream, Bring It On, Ice Princess, Nashville, and I Love You. Beth Cooper were some of her later successful film roles. But behind her thriving profession was a life apart from her contemporaries, where she battled an ever-increasing sense of performance pressure. She had to drop out of regular schooling after middle school due to her involvement in more than 50 projects during her early youth. Anxieties stemmed from her distant mother, who craved attention and appeared determined to live the high life through her daughter despite her failure as a soap opera star. The mother of Panettiere has recently come forward in an interview claiming that Brian Hickerson, an individual she had been attempting to distance herself from for some time, was present with her when she passed away. Young people who grow up in the entertainment industry, it is a struggle, the mother continues, after praising her daughter's incredible potential. She served as her daughter's handler and pimped her out throughout her child career. And now, even after her death, she continues to make exclusive remarks as if she is eager to profit off her downfall. In an exclusive phone conversation with NBC News, is making his first public statement. It breaks my heart that Hayden strayed from the path she should have taken. She possessed many admirable qualities. It would have been best if she had maintained them. The last time I spoke with my daughter was in October, said Vogel, who had previously been Panettiere's manager. On the Jay Shetty podcast in May, Panettiere discussed their relationship problems. In all my years of knowing her, I have never known a period when she wasn't a mother, and life didn't center on the family company. Yesterday, Shetty described Penny as courageous, stating, quote, "You should never have had to experience the things you did." She was referring to Hayden's career and the difficulties she faced. Speaking on the subject, she stated, "I think Hayden was an amazingly talented person in so many departments. It's a struggle, and it's a very challenging industry, and it's not unusual for them to sadly find the wrong path." Despite her role in allowing her boyfriend to abuse her for so long, Hayden has done nothing but blame others, rather than take responsibility for her actions. It's all right to feel the emotions you're experiencing. It can be a difficult and traumatic experience. I was terrified of being alone more than I was of being with someone who was physically abusing me. In an interview with E.T., she says, quote, "The fact that Brian was with Hayden at the time of her death is unsurprising, but devastating nonetheless. It's easy to see why people would desire a relationship with their mother." Leslie also claims Brian enabled Hayden and her family had been trying to get rid of him for quite some time. It's painful to see young Hayden idolize her mom and try to understand her as someone in her corner. Growing up to resent her for seeing her as only a cash cow, she never reached out to her daughter when it mattered, with Hayden admitting she slammed the proverbial door in her face when it came to reconnecting. You talk about at such a young age financially and emotionally supporting the family, and it just built and built and built up, and so much resentment and anger. "Where's your mother?" "I'm sorry, but I'm conducting an interview with my mum, who was Hayden's manager when she was a child star." "What, in your opinion, makes a good mother?" "Oh my, I can't believe that. I think my mom describes a good mom. I think, someone who understands, who knows that what you're going through. And I know what the moms have to go through, and I know that how much they have on their plates." They split professionally when she was 19, and they stopped talking completely about a year before her death. She has very clearly prioritized herself, which I should not be shocked by. When people ask me about the relationship, if there's any hope for future, I always say that I always leave that door open, cracked open, and you pray for it, and you hope it eventually comes. But she slammed that door pretty hard in my face. Her mother completely refused to protect her, and Hayden spent a lot of her early career struggling, and many think her death has to do with the fact that she exposed how she had been groomed and exploited as a child actress. Because I don't find it coincidental at all that Hayden Panettiere lost her life directly after exposing Hollywood. And it's very unfortunate to see. And it's even sadder that no one even knows the cause. It's a very small room, and she physically put me in the bed next to this undressed man who was very famous, and had his hands like this. Diana Jenkins, who is now denying all involvement, is the one who has been exposed as the incident's perpetrator. In the book, Jenkins describes a woman named Stella and how her friend essentially set her up to be a yacht girl. You may be familiar with the term yachting. I mean, c'est une profession in which women travel to France and live on luxury yachts for the purpose of sleeping with powerful men. And how Hayden fell into this trap because she trusted Stella. Hayden recounts this story from when she was 18 years old, being set up to have an incredibly traumatic encounter with a 30-year-old man who was extremely wealthy, famous, and powerful. She discussed the terrifying event on the Jay Shetty podcast, and the story shows just one incident that she went through that traumatized her and led her down the road of being an addict for much of her adult life. Led by somebody that I had grown to trust and see as a protector and somebody who had my back. And to be walked down, down the stairs. And it was as like a surprise presented, as though it was like a surprise. And it was this very small room. And she physically put me in the bed next to this undressed man who was very famous and had his hands like this, like this was just, an average day for him. And this is something that happens all the time. And I waited for her to leave. And I mean, that lion in me, that fire in me, that my hair stood on end, and I became ferocious. But I had nowhere to hide, led by somebody that I had grown to trust and see as a protector, and somebody who had my back, and to be walked down, down the stairs. And it was as like a surprise presented, as though it was like a surprise, and it was this very small room. And she physically put me in the bed next to this undressed man who was very famous, and had his hands like this, like this was just, an average day for him. And this is something that happens all the time. And I waited for her to leave, and I mean, that lion in me, that fire in me, that my hair stood on end, and I became ferocious. I was like, this is not happening, but I had nowhere to hide. What's interesting, too, is that it seems like Stella, whoever this woman may be, kind of groomed Hayden. Hayden said in her book, "I wasn't scared, but I felt like I'd been kicked in the face." She had confided in me, this friend. After she spoilt me and treated me like a best friend, she treated me like a call lady. That was well below what I deserved. Another factor that greatly contributed to Hayden's passing is her abusive on-and-off boyfriend, Brian Hickerson, who had been a constant in her life since they began dating in 2018. Some even believe that he is responsible for her tragic death, rather than the industry punishing her. Were the pills found nearby the only cause? Or did someone inform the authorities? I know you're wondering where Brian was when the EMTs arrived. They didn't take him to the hospital? What was his condition? I mean, come on, where is he now? What's his story? Because, from what I can gather, he's been brutally abusing this woman for the past 5 years, and couldn't care less about her welfare. So what role, if any, did he play? Well, that's a fair question. Hayden Panettiere had abused herself for the past decade, so it's possible that the answer is no role at all, other than sidekick. However, there's definitely more to uncover regarding this boyfriend. As we delve deeper into the details of what transpired, it becomes clear that Brian Hickerson, who has a less-than-stellar record, had a history of domestic violence charges against Hayden and his brother Zach. Both were present at the apartment when the 36-year-old actress passed away. A 911 call was made by one of them stating, "I am experiencing a cardiac arrest and an overdose. CPR is being administered." Hickerson then showed the responding officer a bag of medication that Hayden had been tabaði. News of Hayden's death broke just days after a judge in Los Angeles County rejected Hickerson's motion to dismiss or reduce his prior felony domestic violence charges against her. In her memoir, "This Is Me, a Reconciling," Hayden admitted to repeatedly hitting her. Since her bod